for Palestinian rights, and thank you all for joining this webinar. Again, if you've just joined, please share with us your name in the chat and let us know where you're calling in from. And we're excited to have you all on today. We're partnering on today's webinar with Watermelon Pictures, which have recently launched their own streaming platform. And today's we're going to have a discussion between filmmakers and organizers around the film The Encampments, and give a training on how to organize your own living room screenings of The Encampments. We know that students like Mahmoud Khalil, whose case is still ongoing after his release on bail, students still continue to be targeted and criminalized by the Trump administration for their participation in campus organizing, in the struggle for divestment. So in the face of mainstream media's attempts to justify the criminalization of students, in the face of mainstream media's attempts to continue to manufacture consent for genocide and war, it's really important for us to be popularizing our narrative as a movement through films like these. So thank you all again for joining. As we go through the webinar, if you all have questions, please drop them in the Q&A feature. It's easier for us to track questions that way because we may miss them in the bigger chat, and we'll try to have time for Q&A in between each section. And yeah, so I'm gonna just give a brief introduction for the discussion today, and then we'll get into it. So as you all know, we're now about 20 months into Israel's genocide in Gaza. We've seen, the Zionist entity commit the most heinous war crimes in modern history, which are only made possible due to the material support and the diplomatic and media cover from the United States and the Western world. So while the US and Israel wage their war on Gaza and the region, we know that they're also waging a war on our movements here, in the diaspora, to try to send a message to push our people across the world to give up our liberation struggle. But we've seen, despite the horrors of this genocide, the Palestinian people have remained steadfast, have continued to resist, and we've seen around the world, our movement in the diaspora, all of you here have been able to expose and shatter the image of Zionism. And we've been able to make concrete gains towards divestment and arms embargo. And these things are only possible through organized struggle. These things are only possible when we get organized. So in this moment, it's really important for us to push back, to refuse to back down in the face of repression, to refuse to allow the student movement and the broader Palestine movement to be silenced. And that's why I think it's important for us to learn about the impacts the encampments have had on our broader movement. And as we continue to organize, it's important for us to learn lessons from our experiences that we've built over the past several months in the struggle together. So today we're joined by Munir Atallah, who's producer of The Encampments and who's coming to us from Watermelon Pictures, and Kay Pritzker, who's a co-director of The Encampments and a journalist at Breakthrough News. So we're gonna start with a discussion with Munir and Kay, and then after that we'll go through a training to walk you all through how to do your own living room screening of the encampments and other ways to take action. So thank you both for joining us today. And just to start, I'd want to ask if you both can speak to your role in this documentary. Tell us a little bit about the film for those who haven't seen it, and maybe share also a little bit about like how your backgrounds in student organizing informed your approach to telling the story about the encampments. And either of you can feel free to start.
Okay, I guess I can start. I think there were like 3 questions. So first, involvement in the film. I'm one of the co-directors. The other co-director, Michael Workman, is not with us. He lives in San Francisco. But yeah, I guess my main role was that as Celine said, I am a journalist first and foremost, and I have been reporting on the issue of Palestine, the issue of war and imperialism and all these different things for quite some time. And after the genocide, this recent iteration of the genocide began, I was reporting on a lot of the protests and the student movement as well. And I started reporting on Colombia's student movement shortly after October 7th. They had banned SJP and JVP shortly after. I don't know if people remember, but all of these Zionist donors had basically pressured the school to like take action against anti-Semitism, and that resulted in basically the suppression of these pro-Palestine groups. So I was there reporting on that as a journalist, and that's how I met the Columbia students. I thought they were doing great things, and we stayed in touch throughout this whole period. But when they decided to escalate their campaign, they reached out to me and they said, "Hey, look, the university's not listening to us. They're not acknowledging us. In fact, they're just repressing us even more and more. So we're going to escalate our campaign and we're going to set up this encampment. And could you come and cover it?" And I agreed, of course. And I thought I'd be covering it. Like, I thought I'd be making like a 5-minute news package about it. But I got there the first day. Long story short, the arrest of the students on the second day happened, and that's really what triggered the global encampment movement. And there were encampments popping up like literally hours after those arrests took place. And by that time, I was like, okay, this is this is clearly going to be a much bigger story, a much bigger event. And I stayed through the whole duration of the encampment. I lived there with the students and filmed a lot of it. And long story short is that became this film. And I can't remember the second question, but I know you asked about student organizing. I was in an SGP. I was in the SJP at my school when I was in college, which was about 10 years ago. So, I'm very familiar with the terrain. I'm very familiar with the intimidation tactics, and I have somewhat of a soft spot for SJPs. I think they're doing a great job, obviously. So, yeah, near and dear to my heart.
Thanks, Kay. Yeah, you answered all three of those perfectly. Munir, if you want to share too about like your role and your own background informing the role you played with the film.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having us. Oh, I don't know where Kay went, but oh, I guess it's just me now. Yeah, just to say, I want to talk a little bit about Watermelon Pictures as well and what it is. So we are a completely independent Palestinian-owned distribution and production company. We're based out of Orland Park, Chicago, near Little Palestine, the largest Palestinian community in North America. I personally am based in New York, but this is sort of the beating heart of the company. And we were founded with the mission of bringing Palestinian films to broader audiences through theatrical distribution, digital distribution, and also grassroots distribution, sort of how you guys are helping us with today. So I think this using film as a tool for political awareness, for mobilizing, for activism is really a groundbreaking strategy, like at this person-to-person level, and has a lot of potential. So I'm just really excited to be a part of it, and I thank every person here for taking the time to just learn more and hopefully help spread this film outwards. To tell you a little bit more about the project, the film, I've been a student organizer since SJP days at Tufts University, which was also about 10 years ago. But when the encampments popped off at Columbia, I'm a member of the Palestinian youth movement here in New York, but I also was an adjunct professor at Columbia that semester. And so when I saw the encampments, it was, really such an inspiring, hopeful moment. And I saw that Kay and his team from Breakthrough Media were doing an incredible job of capturing what was really happening on the ground. So after all was said and done, and Hens Hall had happened, and there was a crackdown, and the police raided, the encampments. Basically, we felt like the story needed to be told from the the perspective of the students, right? Most of the journalists who had been reporting on the encampments had never even set foot in there, and they were corporate journalists from outlets like the New York Times, which were smearing the encampments as saying that they were discriminatory and hateful, which being on the ground there, we could see very clearly they were not. And the encampments stood for really a anti-war, anti-genocide movement that is only gaining traction even today. So we came together with Kay and Michael and put together a film that we were still working on when one of our lead protagonists in the film, Mahmoud Khalil, was abducted by ICE. So this was a shock for us, and we also felt a huge responsibility in that moment to act quickly and get the film out there, because all of these lies that the Trump administration was telling about Mahmoud, we had a very clear film that disproved all of it and introduced audiences to Mahmoud as the caring, thoughtful, gentle, principled activist that he is. So we made the decision to kind of release the film just a few days after Mahmoud was abducted, and we were able to get it into theaters in New York, and from there it just snowballed and played all across the country. After that, it played on over 100 campuses, and so the life of this film, it's still very much, having its moment and being seen and being discussed. And we think that we were really able to galvanize more support for Mahmoud's case. And so we're really just excited about being able to spread it and share it with more people. So I don't know if that answers all of your questions, Celine. Did I miss anything?
No, honestly, that was perfect. And thanks for introducing Watermelon Pictures as well. And I'm wondering, maybe Nash, if we want to share the trailer right now, just for people to see before we continue with the discussion.
We're here to discuss the little Gazas that have risen up on campuses across America.
There is a movement to radicalize young people.
Can you believe they are chanting about the intifada in New York City?
I really believe they are brainwashed.
There was a very concerted effort by the media to portray things a certain way and refuse to discuss Gaza. Colombia is materially invested in the genocide in Gaza. We don't want our money to go towards Palestinian death.
I was born and raised in a Palestinian refugee camp. The university was cracking down on Palestinian activism on campus.
It's completely farcical to imply that in any way, like, Jewish people were being persecuted.
I have never felt more proud to be Jewish than when I was pushing our university to divest from genocide.
They would just criminalize anyone who would participate in a protest. That was the moment where students were like, we need to do something more.
The people, they won't leave, but it's threatening about divesting and wanting peace.
The university would say like, oh, you're overestimating your power. I remember like telling them there are 60 universities setting up encampments across the United States.
We got Yale holding it down right now on live. What you willing to risk? What you willing to give? What if you were in Gaza? What if those were your kids?
In '68, the students at Columbia took over the campus, mainly in protest of the war in Vietnam. Columbia talks about how it was okay then, but not okay now.
Bravery is very contagious. We kind of watched Columbia in awe, and we knew we were next.
The only weapon they have is fear, and we call them forth. They have nothing!
Thank you all. Sorry, my computer just froze, so I'm joining by phone now. Just want to ask to just a follow-up question to what you just said about Mahmoud Khalil and how this film disrupted the narrative that the mainstream media was trying to portray about the encampments, and it's all kind of part of this bigger attempt to provide cover and justification for the genocide, and it's like a clear connection to how the attack on Palestinians and on our people in the region is the attack on our movements is an extension of that attack on our struggle more broadly. So I don't know if either of you can share with us a little bit of an update on current challenges students are facing, and especially that we've also heard news just in the past couple of days about the Trump admin threatening denaturalization as another way to target people. What are we seeing in terms of this current context of repression And why are they focusing so heavily on the student movement?
Okay, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, I would say that this is really like, obviously there's a huge attack on students. Many people have seen that, since the Trump administration took office, they've basically been bullying universities, using money as taking their money hostage essentially, and threatening them with sanctions or defunding if they don't enact policies which are clearly designed to suppress free speech and by extension target students that support Palestine. And these are things like mask bans, so you're not allowed to cover your face, just making protest basically against the rules, forbidding megaphones, all these kinds of different policies. But I mean, the denaturalization thing and all these different measures, I think, are part of a bigger trend that's going on here, which is that Zionism and the Israel lobby and all these different groups, which have spent the last 20 months essentially trying to, influence the debate, have now sort of resorted to complete suppression of free speech and basically trying to make it illegal to talk about Palestine. Because as you'll see in the film, and I think is become clear, Israel and Zionism has completely lost the debate. They've lost the battle of ideas. They've lost public support in any measure. What they've done. I mean, there was a poll recently that came out that said that Israel is the most hated country in the world. There was another poll that the majority of Americans now have a negative view of Israel. I mean, these are things that would have been inconceivable to me, or I think anyone else, when we were in college or whatever, 5-10 years ago. But this is all happening. And because of that, the Israel lobby and the Trump administration are resorting to this very desperate tactic of basically trying to ban any discussion of Palestine. So, not just attacking the students, but also, like you said, Celine, denaturalizing citizens and, deporting people. Obviously, what they did to Mahmoud was, supposed to be rolled out against a much bigger population. But I think the pushback was so intense that they kind of failed at that. But they really are trying everything they can to just make it illegal to talk about Palestine. And that's how they've lost.
Yeah, thanks, Kay. And I really agree. And I think it's like clear that this is a response to just how effective our movement has been. And we've also been seeing just like the increase, in attacks from ICE on migrant communities, and like something that LA has been a major site of that, and we've been mobilizing here in LA as well. But something that people are like making really clear connections to is that they're connecting it to the abductions. Different organizations here are connecting it to the abductions that happened, targeting Palestinian student organizers a few months ago. They're connecting it to the genocide in Gaza, kind of talking about these ICE raids and ICE abductions as the domestic face of imperialism, while the US wages war on our region and on our struggles more broadly. So I think this even just like we're seeing so much more of that like connection being drawn really concretely and explicitly, even just in the streets, and like uniting a lot of organizations and a lot of movements as well. And I want to ask too, for Munir, if you can kind of talk about how the encampments at Columbia injected new energy into the broader movement. There was a moment where we were kind of seeing a lull or like a sense of demoralization around the time that the encampment started up. Like, what role did the students play? How did the encampments at Columbia catalyze, the broader movement? If you can speak about that a bit too.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, Colombia has always been a key site of struggle for our people. I mean, going back to the era of Edward Said, who wrote Orientalism while he was at Columbia, to many generations of activists who have really laid it on the line, not just for Palestine, but going back to the 60s against the war in Vietnam, right? So I see Colombia as a key battleground for ideas and for the student movement in general. And I think the students had a very acute awareness of Colombia as this, world stage where, even though the media tried to look away from Gaza, they were, it was impossible to look away from US campuses, because there is such a fascination in this country and even in media with students, and they represent, the next generation of leadership, political leadership. As somebody in the film points out, these are the people who are primed to become the next ruling class, right? Tomorrow's ruling class. And for them to step in and reject that, and to reject Zionism and Israel as a central tenet of what it means to, be part of American empire, it was a sea change, and it was a pivotal moment, showing just how far Zionism has fallen in the eyes of this generation. Of course, Columbia was not the only campus, and that's why the film actually delves into a bunch of the other campuses that joined this movement. Columbia just happened to be the one where there were a unique confluence of circumstances. There was actually an Arab president of Columbia University in Minouche Shafi, who very quickly called the New York Police Department and cracked down on the students in an extremely violent and aggressive way. And that really brought even a new wave of attention to the student movement. And kind of at that point, the students had the very pivotal decision to make of, would they back off or would they double down on this struggle? And this film really takes you through beat by beat what happened even on that day, when the students decided to seize another lawn when one was kind of occupied by the NYPD, and they were forced off of it by their administration. So it's a really fascinating case study, not just of what happened at Columbia, but also the I guess ripple effect that it had on so many other campuses.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we saw campuses all over the world participate. We saw people in Gaza responding to the encampments, demanding that, schools and universities get rebuilt, and that students and the masses continue to stand by Gaza. And I think also what it's done is, what I think the Zionist lobby and also mainstream media are trying to portray is that there isn't that our movement is fringe, but what the encampments also exposed is that actually it's the majority of youth, the masses actually have the same position against Israel, against the genocide, and in support of Gaza. And I think also what's kind of unique about being on a campus is that students have this opportunity to confront Zionism very directly in the institutions that they're attending. So it's they've played this role historically, like you said, historically in the Palestinian struggle, in the the against the war on Vietnam, against the U.S. war on Vietnam. Historically, students have played this role of revitalizing the energy, building momentum, and also I think with the SJPs playing this role of a direct confrontation of Zionism through going after university investments and exposing the role that U.S. institutions are playing in the genocide directly. So I think all of these things were I think the encampments played a really huge role on the level of the battle of ideas to further expose and delegitimize Zionism. And my last question for you all before, and maybe we'll have a bit of time for a couple questions from the audience, but my last question is really, how can we continue to strengthen momentum across campuses and our communities in this moment of repression? And how can this film, The Encampments, and other films that Watermelon Pictures has been working on, how can these play a role in helping rebuild that momentum and continue to kind of empower people to keep organizing, I guess. I don't know, Munir, if you want to start with that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. I think one thing that I've been thinking about personally is the importance of building our own institutions, right? And to me, Watermelon Pictures is just one of this landscape of institutions that we need to be supporting, and USPCR is another incredible institution. These are centers of power that will be able to carry the ideological battle that we're in forward. because although there's a lot happening right now, we know that we are in a long-term battle against these racist ideologies that are making genocide possible, and that this struggle is going to go way beyond just the next few weeks or this one film or anything more. So just to reiterate a little bit about Watermelon Pictures, you know, we're Palestinian owned, we're fully independent, and that gives us, that's kind of a superpower in Hollywood, where there is so much Zionist money and pressure and lobbying that's concentrated. If you think about how Israel kind of secured its cultural hegemony here, Hollywood and the movie industry is a huge part of that, you know? So we are here to really combat that and say that, you know, if the industry is going to shut us out, we don't need them. We're going to build our own power. And that's why we launched a streaming service earlier this year called Watermelon Plus. And, you know, it's the Encampments is being hosted on that platform, among others, where it's available. But I really just want to help reiterate like the importance of why Watermelon Plus and subscribing to it does really materially help us in uplifting and furthering the Palestinian narrative, because, you know, when you get a subscription to Watermelon Plus, you are supporting basically our mission. The money goes entirely to two places. One is Watermelon Pictures to be able to invest in future productions of Palestinian films, to be able to promote and advertise the release of our current films, and also to the artists, to the filmmakers and producers and directors like Kay, who want to make a career out of this, right? I mean, we need to be able to make this a sustainable path for people to take, because we know that in our community, there's all the pressure in the world to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? And yes, those are all very honorable professions, but at the same time, we need our storytellers, we need our artists, we need our poets, we need our filmmakers. And with Watermelon Plus, the split is 50-50 between the platform and the artists. So whenever you know, look, there's so many streaming services out there that are backed by just massive corporations that are invested materially in genocide, right? There are other streaming platforms that take money from Israeli arms-linked venture capitalists that are, you know, just, you know, investments that you probably don't feel good about, right? So, you know, by building our own streaming platform, we're able to now take films from development, the process that Kay and I went through when we were on the encampments at Columbia, saying this should be a movie, all the way through production, where we make the film and we pay for the, you know, artists who come and edit and shoot and color and do all of that stuff that goes into making like a really world-class piece of cinema, all the way through distribution and exhibition, which is the point where people can now see this film and it can have the impact that it needs to have in the world. So, you know, to us, this whole process is really supported and powered by you guys and by people who are interested in these ideas, who believe in them, who believe in our work, and who we ultimately want to be accountable to, you know, by being part of this community that we are building. You know, you guys are part of our community who we want to hear from, who we want to take, you know, direction from. And so, you know, our door is really always open to films, ideas, feedback, and we want it to be sort of a two-way street between us and our audience. So that's just one way that we're thinking of, like carrying forward this ideological battle that we're in. And I'm sure Kay has other ideas as well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Munir. And yeah, Kay, also just in addition to like any thoughts you have about how we build through this moment of repression, like if you also want to share about like why it's important to support alternative media outlets like Breakthrough News. Like I know Breakthrough News is one of the first outlets that I go to for analysis. So, you know, I think it's also like a part of this, you know, building of institutions and supporting institutions that are combating Zionism.
Yeah, no, this is super important. I agree with everything Munir said, and you know, you just have to remember that we're going up against like a multi-billion-dollar media apparatus that is like heavily influenced by Zionism. So we are, I mean, ironically, this is the David and Goliath, and we are the David. So yeah, we need money to operate. Unfortunately, sadly, that is the way the world works. And I just want to clarify, like, it is important that institutions like Watermelon and Breakthrough are funded. I am not personally, I will not make any money off this personally. I refuse to make money off this personally, but the institutions are important, and they need to last and survive. As for like building the momentum in the movement, I think just one thing I want to add, and something I've been thinking about a lot, is like, we made this film not so everyone could just like celebrate our accomplishments and we could look back on this nostalgically. Like, we also did this to show people who are still being propagandized, or still, hearing these mainstream or like, bought and paid for Zionist narratives, that actually what they've been told is wrong, and actually what they've been told is not true. And I want to emphasize that Palestine is not a left or right issue, and this is the most important issue in the world still, even though some people, I don't know, seem like they're moving on from it. This is still the most important thing that's happening in the world right now, and we're not gonna grow our movement if we continue to just live within our own echo chamber. Like, the way Palestine will be free is if the world comes together, if people come across bridges, if people unite and say, whatever, like, differences aside, this is unacceptable. Because what Israel's doing right now in the region is, I mean, they're threatening to drag the world into a potential nuclear armed conflict. I mean, they're trying to drag the United States into this conflict and make U.S. soldiers, fight against a country like Iran. I mean, this is the insanity of Zionism. And if this doesn't make it clear that like Israel is a threat to world peace and all of humanity, I don't know what will. So please use this film, use it as a tool. Go to your neighbors, go to people who disagree with you, and tell them the truth. Tell them about Palestine, and don't be afraid of them, because they've a lot of them have been lied to. So yeah, that's what I'll leave it at.
Thank you both so much. Yeah, and I mean, like, the way that this genocide is justified is through the lies that mainstream media tells us. So it is really important to promote films like this and use it as an organizing tool, as Kay and Munir are saying. And in terms of building institutions, like, this is how we cement the gains that our movement has made. Like, we want to go beyond mobilization. We want to get organized so that we're building infrastructure that can sustain us no matter what, so that we're always ready for the next thing that comes. And we're able to actually bring people into these like political homes, or into these like different institutions, to be able to continue our work for the long term, because this is a long-term struggle. Like, this is a struggle that started, the Palestinian struggle over 100 years ago. And it might take us another 100 years to reach liberation, but we are going to organize until that happens regardless. So thank you both, Munir and Kay, so much for all your work on this film, on combating the mainstream media narratives, and for joining us today. Most of our questions are about how to organize a screening, so I'm going to pass it to Sajjad and Kat to walk us through that. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celine. I'm going to walk us through how to host your own screening in your own home, in your living room, through the Watermelon Plus streaming platform. And then I'll also share a little bit about how you could set up like a larger screening in your community, as well as some are already doing. Which is a different process. But really, like, what we want to share with you all today, and our goal for like partnering with Watermelon Pictures to bring the encampments out to our communities, to our neighborhoods, to our friends and our families, is the goal to build community, to educate and to activate that community for Palestinian liberation. So this isn't just an opportunity for entertainment to watch a film, but it's about that deeper community building that comes when you gather with your friends and your family and you sit down together, you start having those deeper conversations, you start thinking critically about how can we take action together, what can we do? And the relationships that come out of that, which is the vision, the relationality, the connection, the shared experiences, the shared purpose, and then from that deeper community building, forming forming groups where you can take action together. And I see a quick question in the chat. Yes, we could share the slides afterward as well, and a recording will also be available afterward. So as for how we do it, it's both through small screenings you could host in your own home. And you can do that by subscribing to the Watermelon Plus streaming platform. And I see that Munir has shared a promo code in the chat. Or you could also submit a request to Watermelon Pictures to screen it to a larger audience in your community through their platform as well. I'm gonna go through like the first few steps on how to host your movie nights. Number one, very first step is to fill out the intake form, which you could find at uscpr.org/living room, and we'll drop that in the chat as well. So this form here will show you, has like a few basic questions on it that you could fill out to tell us a little bit about what you're thinking for hosting your event, whether it's one at your home or even if you're thinking bigger than that. And we stress that like you don't need to have like all the details figured out to fill out this form. You could just like fill it out right now, like type in like what you're thinking of doing and like your best, ballpark estimates of what you have in mind. And then we'll follow up with you and be in touch with you. And one of those key ways we'll stay in touch with you is through a Signal group we've set up for people who are interested in screening the encampments in their homes, in their communities. And in that Signal group, we're going to be sharing a toolkit that's going to have all the resources you need, discussion questions, action steps to do a small screening with your community. And then you'll also receive a link to create your own event on Mobilize. So when you're in that Signal group, you'll get that link, you'll be able to click, and then you'll be able to set up your own event where you can enter the name of the event, the date, time, location, like if it's happening at your house. And then you could also set whether it's a public event or a private event. So if you're hosting an event at your own house and you want to invite people to register, you could set it as a private event because you don't want that location to be visible to everybody. So you could set that as private. But if you're holding like a big screening with your whole community and you've reached out to Watermelon Pictures to, for the licensing permissions to do that, then you could set it up as a public event. So that's the distinction there. And then we'll be talking more about the toolkit and what's included in it shortly, along with more about the Signal group. So to go on to our next part, I want to talk a little bit about outreach and what you should be thinking about as you're like getting started and you're thinking about like hosting your home's like living room screening. You're thinking about inviting your friends, your family. Take some time to sit down and think, okay, what's like a good time and date to do the screening together? Maybe like a 7 to 9 p.m. movie night. When are people available? And then brainstorm an invitation list of who could you invite. So this could be anyone from your friends to your family members to your neighbors to your coworkers, people in your faith community, and so on. Really any group or network of people who you're in touch with who you think that they would be interested in this. This is your opportunity to invite them in to watch the movie with you at your home and like plug in to taking action as well. So this is really perfect for if you have people who who are interested in learning more about Palestine, are interested in getting more involved or taking more action in some way, but maybe they're just not quite sure how to do it yet. This is the perfect way to bring them in, to have those conversations, like starting right in your home, and go from there. And then a few other things you'll want to start thinking about, accessibility information, especially if you're going to be hosting a bigger event, everything from wheelchair accessibility to like ASL interpretation. And then also, like, if you're holding an event in your home, you're going to have some light refreshments. Maybe you'll think about dietary restrictions, reach out to your friends and check in with them about that. So like a couple things to keep in mind and plan out. And then another good thing to think about is there a co-host who you would like to host the event with you? So this would be great if you have a good friend or colleague or fellow comrade activist who you think, oh, this would be a great person to host this with me and like help facilitate a discussion about the Encampments movie and could help like invite some of their friends and bring more people into this. That's great to think about as well. And then you'll want to think about what actions and organizing can your screening lead to. So what are next steps, ways that you could organize to use the movie as a jumping off point, a springboard into something bigger. So this could be anything from like organizing your friends to like go to the next protest after you watch the film, to taking action on a BDS campaign, to picking up the phone and calling your representatives, or calling and organizing around your local university to support the students who are protesting and taking action there and tell universities to protect their students in a time of heightened repression. So think through your vision in that. And then you will be sending you a toolkit with all the more information. But if you're interested in holding a bigger community screening, I just want to drop the link here on how to submit a request for Watermelon Pictures. So if you're hosting a small screening in your home, in your living room, it's like you and 10 of your friends, you can do that through the Watermelon Plus streaming platform. You could sign up for that with the promo code, get a subscription, screen it right there in your home. If you're hosting a bigger community screening, like, and you have like 100 people there, what we'd like, what Watermelon Pictures request that you do is submit a screening request to them for the licensing permissions and go through their process. So I've shared the link there as well. And then I'll go into the toolkit just to give a really quick preview of what you'll find in there. So just, there are a few like sample discussion questions here of what you'll find in the toolkit, things to kind of get people thinking about the student encampments, the strategy, the organizing behind it, and like get that discussion going. And then also in the toolkit, there'll be a menu of action steps that you can take. And it's really a starting point for a variety of different actions that you could take with your community as well. Like from calling up your local university to attending the next protest, joining an organizing meeting, or even starting up your own group of friends. You'd be surprised at how much just like 3 people organizing together strategically can really make an impact and create some real pressure on elected officials, on universities and other targets, BDS and so on. And now for this next part, I'm going to pass it to Sajal to talk more about the digital community building piece of this project, and especially about the signal group that we're going to be building and creating. But Sajal is the Director of Learning and Analysis at Kairos Fellowship, and he's partnering with us on digital community building with USCPR, and we're excited to partner with him on this project. And I'll pass it to you to share more.
Thanks, Kat. Really honored to be part of this call. I was just in the chat, just trying to make sure everyone, there's a lot of questions coming in, lots of excitement, and this is what is absolutely great and so fun for me and being part of this with y'all. I will say just live now that I'm unmuted that like there's a lot of conversation around like, oh, what is a living room, you know, et cetera, and like what constitutes the need for like a bigger screening to submit a request to Watermelon Plus. And just to reiterate what Kat said, it's like kind of 100-ish or more required, like may that would be something that you would contact Watermelon Plus about. We can redrop that link there for that larger screening, but everything else is a living room, y'all. We just found a cute name to say it because we wanted this to feel accessible. We want people to have a sense that that they can take part in this, and it really comes down to a core feature of behind this whole initiative, which is really that our solidarity movement for Palestine in the U.S. is under attack. It's not just in the U.S. It's all over the world, and ironically, our movement has never been bigger, has never been stronger. We have never been able to get this close to the sense of like we could see, we can really feel and taste a free Palestine. The leadership, though, that is needed in this moment is far beyond the leadership of just specific individuals or organizations, right? This is why we're here. The energy in this chat is like indicative of that. Like, it's not always that I get to be on calls like this, but I just have to say, like, it is absolutely energizing me just to see so many people so willing, energized, already taking part in the communities, already organizing screenings, have already like maybe made the connection between what this movie can do for their own communities. And we're here just to facilitate that process. We'll just keep dropping the links for the intake form, for the signal group. Those are the big two. We'll also take a little bit of time to do that together right after this. And then we'll also, and then if you have a larger screening, we'll redrop that link as well to contact Watermelon Plus. The thing though that we need more than ever right now is that we are our opponents, those who oppose a free Palestine or a struggle for a free Palestine, they want us to fatigue. They want us to fight. They want us to turn inward. They want us to lose hope. They want us to choose our fear over our ambition and our strive and our solidarity. And we cannot let that happen. And one major component to all of this is that we need our relationships more than ever. We were talking about institutions earlier around like, you know, these institutions like Watermelon Plus, et cetera, et cetera. We also need the institutions of interpersonal connection, community, neighborhoods, districts, our localities, our regions. I live in a pretty small, a small community in North Carolina. But like those of you who live in Chicago, just seeing like all those folks being able to be like, oh yeah, we have a screening, let's all pile onto that one. Like this can happen, right? And it's not just for entertainment, right? There's so many opportunities coming out of here. So when you're filling out the form, which we're going to take a little bit of time to do, and when you're joining that signal group, I want y'all to just kind of like hold this idea with me a little bit. There's something experimental about this, and it's experimental because we need this experiment right now. There may be a time within the next short period of time in the future, or maybe a little bit longer, that an organization like USCPR is not necessarily permitted to exist in the current context that it is within. And for that reason, we have to make sure that the leadership around Palestine solidarity in this context is distributed amongst all of us. They cannot stop our movement if we are organized in a distributed way, right? So if this is not just a living room screening, this is a test of our individual leadership and a test of the leadership of our communities. And so you will notice a question at the bottom of the intake form that I would love folks to like think of very seriously, because this is just the beginning. After this step, we're planning on experimenting with creating a digital community that is moderated, well-facilitated, co-led by a community of leaders, building relationships with each other, organizing with each other, pushing actions out with each other across digital spaces as well as in our community spaces. And we want to lead that with you all. Okay, so there's an interest question at the bottom of the intake form that you'll see. If you are interested in us in reaching out and having a conversation with one of our folks, please hit yes on that. And over the next several months, as we continue to build out this experiment, we'll be reaching out to y'all, okay? We're taking this really seriously. We're really thinking about the threshold. We're really building this out. And we want to do this with y'all's leadership because we can't do it otherwise. So we're going to put on a little song. And we're just going to take, I think, how much time do we have? Because we also want to get to a few questions. Probably just like another 2 minutes. Just to, if you haven't already, fill out the intake form and log into the Signal group. When you have done that, just drop a watermelon emoji in the chat. And then that's it. And then we'll come back for Q&A. We'll be looking through the Q&A. If you've already filled everything out, we'll come back to the we'll drop a Q&A question if you have it.
We will be free. One day when the light shines, we will be free. In our lifetime, we will be free. And they can bury us, but they will find out we are seeds. They can bury us, but they will find out we are seeds. I say free Palestine because I know of every massacre we suffered. The Nakba, Sabra, Shatila, and Rafah. My people have died 1,000,000 times in the struggle, still they rise from the tide like a rose through the rubble. I see God himself in the eye of a refugee who'd rather die a martyr than live a life on the sea. So if I'm not allowed to say from the river to the sea, then from the Rhine to the sea, Palestine will be free. Still they know they can't shake us. $1 billion sword to the neck. Death cannot break us. And every Palestinian refugee holds a key. One day we will return, no matter how long it takes us. In we will be free. One day when the light shines, we will be free. In our lifetime, we will be free. And they can bury us, but they will find out we are seeds.
I've seen massacres, I'm grateful to be alive. You appreciate life when you survive a genocide. Look in my eyes and tell me what you see. Ran out of tears to cry, right till Palestine is free. Got a problem with a system that doesn't want us existing. Turn the city to a prison that's missing living conditions. My mom's calling, she's telling me she kinda scared. I hear the bombs falling, I smell of death up in the air. My uncle lost his children, I lost my cousins. His tears watered the grave to let him know we still love some. Our schools turn to shelters for the rich and poor. I just pray for peace when I speak. I don't wish for war. Bodies laying out.
Just so everyone knows, after this call, if you're not in the Signal group, it's going to be very hard to participate. So if you're not in the Signal group before this call ends or afterwards, it's going to be very hard to participate, to receive the toolkit, to get updates from us. We're going to figure out why for some folks the promo code did not work. We'll figure that out and drop that in the signature as well. So make sure you're looking at the chat and getting Signal on your phone and filling out the intake form and letting us know if you want to be part of future leadership with our digital community process. I think we're gonna go ahead and pass it to Celine to finish us up with any outstanding Q&A.
Yes, trying to see if there's any last questions. Otherwise, we're gonna just maybe prepare like a follow-up email for all of you with like the recording materials, and yeah, we'll try to capture responses to questions in there. So yeah, I think you all have pretty much touched on, I think, what the majority of questions are asking.
Celine, your sound is not
You know, continue to support Watermelon Pictures and Breakthrough News for the work that they do. And I just want to also say, encourage people to register for the People's Conference for Palestine in Detroit, Michigan on August 29th to the 31st. USCPR will be there, Watermelon Pictures will be there, Breakthrough News will be there. And this conference is going to be a historic convening for all of us. We're going to be gathering as organizations, as movement leaders, community members, students, cultural workers, healthcare workers, teachers, like all sectors of our society are going to convene to strengthen our collective commitment to the struggle for a free Palestine. And we're going to be meeting to strengthen our relationships, to sharpen our strategies, and to show the world that regardless of the repression, our movement will only continue to strengthen and to grow. So we'll drop maybe the registration link in the chat or send it in the follow-up, but just really want to encourage folks to register and attend the People's Conference for Palestine, which is happening at the end of August. So get your tickets now. Again, continue to use the resources that Sijal and Kat just talked us through to host your own screenings, and you know, hopefully, you know, this will be a good tool to get you know, your communities, your friends, your networks organized, and you know, a tool to continue to engage in discussion and to kind of continue to build and strengthen our movement across the board. So thank you all so much for joining, and I think we will close here. Thank you, everyone.
The recording has stopped.